Hello, I'm Liam Scollin, and I'm bringing you this video about the Community Support Fund Online on behalf of the Mayo Public Participation Network to accompany the training that you've already received from me. This is going to be a video, as short as I can make it, to just explain the various things to do with the Community Support Fund Online. So, for instance, overview of the support fund itself, registering online for the first time with the Mayo County Council portal. And then thirdly, of course, completing the online application, in this case, the Community Support Fund application. So I suppose, first of all, just to explain, the fund is being managed by the Community and Integrated Development section, Anne Moore, Lisa Coyne and Yvonne Geraghty there in that team. And if you have queries with making the application, the email is there, csf2022@mayococo.ie. Obviously, all these training sessions, including these ones, are being brought to you by Mayo PPN. And I'm just facilitating the different sessions and putting on the training. So just first of all, the first thing we want to cover is the overview of the Community Support Fund. And as you can see there, it covers the broad range of things you see on the screen, broad range of groups. It's small grants. We'll come to the amounts in a minute. And it covers both running costs and capital expenditure. Applications are being invited from groups all over the rural areas. So as I say, it covers current costs, such as you see there, electricity through to insurance bills. It doesn't, for instance, cover legal costs. And then capital costs, you see some examples of them there. When you go onto the Mayo County Council site, as we'll see later, you'll see a full description of the sort of terms of the fund and what's eligible and what's not eligible in the fund as well. The amounts, three categories, category 1 and 2, 1 up to 1,000, then category 2, 1 to 5,000, and a separate ring-fenced fund called for the Women's Shed of up to €1,000. So just maybe before we get into the mainstream fund of the CSF, the Community Support Fund, we look at the Women's Shed element of the CSF. The Women's Shed is a ring-fenced fund. Again, the deadline for that fund is the 14th of March at 3 p.m. There's the email and phone number where you can contact the team there. And the scheme guidelines, also look on the site there and you'll find the scheme guidelines. The fund itself, this is for the Women's Shed in particular, very straightforward. You see there at the bottom, tax reference number, charitable status, tax clearance number. If you're not a charity and if you're not registered for tax already, you don't need to do so for this application. It's only in the case if you're already tax registered or a charity. The second question deals with that it really wants Women's Shed to be standalone organisations, not affiliated with the parent organisation. Otherwise, you would apply, if you like, as a general community group or social group, not as a Women's Shed. So it'd be Women's Shed, you need to kind of prove that you are a Women's Shed. And provide descriptions of what you do, the organizational structure. The gist of that type of question, the type of answer it's looking for, is that there's a shape about you in the sense of how many of you are there? How often do you meet? What's your committee structure like? What's the focus of your activities? Have you a plan for the year? You know, nothing meant to be said in detail here, just short answers to simple questions. The project details, so it is a support for running costs in the Women's Shed, which we're still with. The ring-fence funding is only available for non-pay running costs and operating costs, not for capital in this case. If you have a capital need, there is, of course, the capital fund element of the Community Support Fund that we'll come to. Sometimes I'll just pause to let you read some of the information for yourself. So back to the General Support Fund that we talked about earlier. So again, like with the Women's Shed Fund, the deadline is the 14th of March, Tuesday, the 14th of March, 3 p.m. In order to claim, grant aid, you need to be able to show proof of having spent the money. In the case of running costs, it must be goods purchased and submitted by the 31st of, or not running costs, but in the case of goods purchased, for instance, for capital items, you must have shown that grant payment was processed before August 2023, but before the 31st of August. In the case of running costs, you need to be, they apply to the period 1st of April 2022 to the 31st of March 2023. Just mind the two different periods of time. If it's capital costs, if it's running costs. It's a slight difference, as you can see, in the evidence that you need to show of when that money is being spent. Example of the groups that are eligible for funding, or the projects, I should say. Again, quite broad ranging. Continuing on that. And some people, when we present this or ask questions about, if you've already applied for the Community and Voluntary Sector Energy Scheme, and you should really contact the Office of Mayo County Council on the email that I just shared with you in that case. The golden rule is non-duplication of funding. So if you've already got funding for something, you shouldn't be applying a second time for the same things. If things are additional, perhaps yes, but you would need to check that out. But additionality is key here. So again, another thing to think about before you're actually, go online to make an application, and this is true of, all online portals these days, is to actually make sure that the information you're going to be asked to upload later on is easy to hand. It's in a folder in your computer that you can upload it easily and get it. So those are the sort of things you may need handy. For instance, 3 quotations, and the amount of your current costs, those types of things. Bank statement header is actually what is needed, not necessarily the details. The bank statement header to show you've got a bank account. So one of the first things I'm going to demonstrate to you on this is this here. It's one of the kind of new questions, if you like, being asked. It sounds mysterious, but when we get into it, it's quite simple. It asks you for your X and Y ITM coordinates. The purpose of this is that the government department wants to be able to track nationally and at county level how geographically the funding is distributed, and is asking all applicants to put in their own coordinates of where exactly they are located. So I'm going to click on this here and give you a demonstration online of how this actually works, a simple guide to finding your XY coordinates. So I'm going to click this now. And you see there coming up on your screen, Irish Transverse Mercator ITM format. ITM, that's what it is. So you see here the irish.gridreferencefinder.com. So we're going to click on that. And I'm going to click now. And up comes a map of Ireland. So here's where you put in your location, first of all. And I'll give an example here. Suppose we put in a well-known Mayo landmark called Knockshrine. I put in Knockshrine, nothing happens, but I need to press go. So I'm going to press go. You see it there lighting up. And in comes immediately, like magic, where Knockshrine is. But I still haven't got my ITM coordinates, my ITM for X or Y. So I'm going to click on this red button where they have located Knockshrine. And there you have it, your X coordinate and your Y coordinate. You just copy those or take a note of them, and you'll be able to put that in the application. That's an example of one of the pieces of documentation to have ready before you make the application. Otherwise, it can be quite bothersome going off in the middle of it. And sometimes these online applications can be timed, and you don't want to time out in it as well. So back to the documentation. That's just an example of how you do the documentation. And there's an example again. As I say, all of this, you'll have these slide presentations hopefully by now that rehearse some of these things. There we were, we put in Knockshrine, we got Knockshrine on the picture. We clicked on Knockshrine and we got that information. We got the X and the Y coordinates. So registering online for the first time. So we're just going to go into that now. And so just a few tips about it, first of all. This is a two-step process, really. One is you register online on the portal. And that enables you to not only apply for grants that Mayo County Council might be running online, but also to submit opinions on applications or planning applications, things like that. Helps you interact better. And you will be going on to this site here, Consult. If you're going to register online, eventually we'll hit that button, or you will be hitting that button to register online. But I'll give you a few sort of guiding points to begin with before we go into all that. You will be asked for a password. And I'll talk a little bit about password, because that password there is made up of a number of different elements that makes it a valid password. First of all, there's a caps letter, a capital letter V. There's lowercase, so you need a mixture of both. You have a number, 1, and you have a special character, @ So that's the other thing that I'm going to explain is two-factor authentication, TFA. But we'll first of all spend a little time talk a little bit about the password. So that's the, if you like, definition of a good password there. And you can see how the word very funny, in the way it's spelt, mirrors that. The characteristics there. So I'll let you look at that for a while. Now we're going to move on. The other thing that we're going to do now is go on to the Mayo County Council website. And I'm going to click here, as you would, to go into the main portal of it. And I'm going to show you, first of all, about how registering online works. So I'm going to click here. So up comes the Mayo County Council website. In this case, I'm going to just accept cookies. And you should see at the top of your screen the word apply. Just above Visit Mayo and above Invest Mayo. I'm going to click on apply. And you then get this web face here. And you scroll down, and there you see Community Support Fund 2022-2023. I'm going to click More Information. So you see it lights up for me. And you're now brought into the section that runs this fund called the Community and Integrated Development section. So we scroll down and you see there all of the information that I talked about earlier on. Press release about the site, current costs and what that means, the fund amounts, the closing date, Tuesday, the 14th of March. If you're not already have an account, and this is what we're going to explain, you would need to go into this here and create your account. I'll come back to that very shortly. And again, like I had said, there was a documentation, make sure you have documentation to the ready. And please read the scheme guidelines, which will be there before submitting. So if you're already registered, you would then go on to this portal to apply for the fund. What I'm going to do is click on that. But when I'm in there, I'm going to show you how you would register also for the first time. So I'm going to click on this now. before we go into the fund, I'm going to sort of show you how I would have registered, because I'm already registered. So I'll show you how I would have registered for the first time. So if you had clicked on that consult.mayo.ie, it would have brought you to a page like this and would have asked you for this sort of information. Just your name, surname, your email address. And one of the things that we're saying, or that Mayo County Council wishes to say on this, is that whatever email address you choose for your organisation, try and have it as a permanent one, right? One at chairperson at organisation or chairperson.organisation@gmail.com, so that whatever chairperson you have, even if that chairperson changes over the years, you still have the same email address. It just means that you're remembered better on the online portal systems. It's more consistent and you won't be got lost in the system. So you put in your house number, not your house number in my case, you put in your address, but you put in the address of the organisation. Put in your phone number, web address if you have one, you don't have to have one, and your password. So that's the first section. So you're then going to be asked, after putting in your password and your email, that's one set of authentication factors when you're going to go online in the future. You'll always be asked for your username, which is usually your password, your email address. And you're also asked for your password, which you will have created at this stage. Then comes the second factor of authentication, what we call the two-factor authentication. And I'll click on security because that's where it'll show it here. So in fact, the second part of registering online is where it will ask you, do you want to be sent notifications by email or by mobile phone? I usually pick email. It's probably the best way to go. And what happens then is once you put in your email address and once you put in your password, it then triggers and asks, it sends you a 6-digit code to your email or whichever you've chosen of those two. And you then put in that. And that really then gets you into your own portal, gets you into your own site at that stage. So I'm going to close at that point there. And that's so simply registering online is what we've just covered there. And I'll recap that information again. Yeah, once you go into that consult.mayo.ie, you then are led to this. You put in simple information like that, your address, very simple at this stage. You're asked for a password as well. And then, you're asked for these two options and you're asked to enable one of them. So I would have enabled email. And once I'd enabled email, it brought me, it did it. It says that's my main point for which I'm going to get my 6-digit code sent to. And that then gets sent, once I set up my password and I confirm it, it sends the verification 6-digit code to that email. And there you go, you're registered online. So the last thing I'm going to explain is completing the online application. In this case, the Community Support Fund. This is very useful, not just for Mayo County Council, but increasingly, whether it's the Community Foundation for Ireland, whether it's Rethink Ireland, they're increasingly creating online portals. Also, Pubble has an online portal. So a lot of applications come through portals now. So this can be counted as good training and preparation for dealing with portals in general. So once again, I'm going to go back into the site and show you how this would actually work in terms of completing the Community Support Fund application on Mayo County Council. Again, I accept cookies. You don't have to, but I always think it's good on these trusted sites to accept them. So again, you go to apply. Again, you go and look for the Community Support Fund and you click on More Information and you click that. You go down into the fund. Now this time, I'm already registered. So I don't have to go in there. That's what you would go in if you were going to register. I'm already registered, so I can go straight to the portal. And I'm going to click here, consult.mayo.ie Community Support Fund. I'm going to click. Now, just for illustration purposes, I'm going to just backtrack for a second while I'm online. I want to take this back to the beginning, so just bear with me as I scroll back to the beginning in order to get you back to the beginning. And as you can see, I'm retracing my steps back to step number 1, and I'll explain about that later. I'll go back again. Just go backwards for a while before we go forward. So I've come to the first page, which you will do normally because you won't have completed the application form like I have. By going in new into this, it'll bring you to the first page. Again, it gives you the terms and conditions. And you can kind of a good read at that. You see the closing date, the fund. And it asks, you're at the very beginning, start. So you don't click that, you click Start Application Form. And as you go on, you'll be saving drafts as well. Although it does save itself, there can be a time lag, but best to be sure and save draft. So Start Application Form. So I'm going to click Start Application Form. And that takes me to the first step. And it's going to ask me information about my organization. Sorry, I just went too far too quickly there. So it asked me what district, what municipal district am I in? So it handily gives you a map of the municipal districts in Mayo. And if you flick around on that, the maps can sometimes disappear. Always click on that home button and it'll bring you back to that picture. And you can actually, by putting in your address in there, or your air code, it will actually, well, the air code of your organization, it will bring in a dot showing you which of these municipal districts you're already in. Now, see how when I just moved it, that map disappeared annoyingly on me? But all I have to do is click that and it'll come back there for you. I just call myself a fictitious name, the Mayo Development Trust. Again, I put in my address of the organization and my role. Again, the point about put in an email address that preferably doesn't change. You won't be ineligible if you don't, but it's good practice to do it. You put in an alternative contact name. And then you describe the first substantial question you're asked is to provide a brief organizational description of your group and organization. They're only asking for 500 words. So I've put in 500 characters. I've got as far as 498, I think, in this. So see there, it's a bit like the Women's Shed application. It's just asking you for very simple, basic information to show that you have some bona fides as a group. In this case, I pretended we were a group to develop activities for older people. We're a committee of 6 people. We meet every 6 weeks. We provide social gatherings, games, trips, guest lectures, and celebrations. We hold our AGM every year, which elects a committee. And we have a chairperson, secretary, and treasurer, and our financial report is presented at each committee meeting. Very simple. That's all it's asked. If I tried to write much more, it wouldn't let me. So just to show this is not a, Mayo County Council put up a very straightforward online application here. Has your group organization been registered with the PPN? I'd say no, but if you say no, it asks you, it suggests you might join, register online here with Mayo PPN. Ask you what the purpose of your organization is. Have you received funding from other capital schemes? I said yes. So you're not debarred from getting funding from the Community Support Fund if you've had grants from other places, provided it wasn't duplication or for the same thing. So I just put in here fictitiously that I got a grant from Leader, Southwest Mayo. The scheme was the Leader scheme. The organization was Southwest Mayo Leader. The amount was that. The year received was that. if any of the above funding was paid through the local authority, have you submitted your bank account details previously? And I said no. Have you applied to public under the Community and Voluntary Energy Support Scheme in respect of energy costs? I've said yes. Did you receive funding from any other organisation? So as I say, it doesn't debar you from applying for energy costs, provided it's very separate. You receive funding because I pretended we were an older age group, that I pretended we got a grant from Age Action, €400, 220. It's all good to put in information like that because it shows that you've applied for successfully for money before, and that's good. You can add extra rows there if you like as well. Is your organisation affiliated or connected to a regional body? I said, I pretended yes. Again, that's good. It shows you're well networked. Those of you who have been on previous Mayo PPN courses, they're back in February, January, February indeed. One of the things we'd said on them courses was the importance of being networked, not just being an organization standing out there in your own field, doing your own thing, but what they're doing is relevant and helps others. So that grants given to you have an added value in helping others. So what I'm saying here is that not only is it helping this older active age group, it also links in with the ICA, it links in with the Historical Society, links in with the Community Centre. So there I have 3 groups almost networked in there in that answer. Have you a charitable status number? As I said before, you don't have to have. You don't have to have a tax reference number for this purpose, but you have to put it in if you are tax registered. So then I click and go to the next page. But I'm just going to demonstrate something to you, that unless you have answered every question there, it won't go to that next page for you. I'm just going to demonstrate that to you. So suppose I don't give the year of my establishment. Yeah, the year the group was established. And I forget to do that. I go next page. It comes right back, as you can see there. It won't let me go forward. Sorry, it flipped on me there. It won't let me go forward until I answer that question. So I'm going to put in 2020 again. I'm going to try, will it let me go forward? I'm going to click next page. And it does. It tells me I've gone through here and I'm now on project details. So it's asking me, have I applied for this? Am I applying for the small grant or the category 2 bigger grant? I'm applying for the bigger grant. What type of heading am I doing? I'm putting in general equipment here on that. Because again, for recording purposes at departmental level, people need to know where was this money spent at a collective level. It's asking you for the purpose of the grant. The previous one was what was your organization's purpose. Now it's asking for the purpose of the project and the grant. So I've said that we're purchasing a TV to enable us to show films from bygone days with particular emphasis on local and regional happenings. This will be housed in a dedicated room in the community centre. It can be available for other groups to use in agreement with our committee and the community centre. So again, I'm doing a number of things there. I'm explaining practically what this is about. I'm also saying that we're not standalone. We're getting the appropriate agreements with the committee at the community centre to do this. It's asking for those XY coordinates. Already I have them collected, so I can just slot them in there. If this is for a specific project, when will the project begin? So I've put in there March. So one of the points to make, important points here, is that all capital items being applied for in a grant here, you must not have already spent the money until your grant was approved. When would it be completed? I put in June, but you cannot go beyond August 2023. So here is looking for consents, have you the permission of the landowner or whatever, if there is one relevant. If it's a phased development or other schemes operated by the government department or local authority, is this part of a phased development? If it was, you'd have to explain that. So there's consistency across the board. So I'm going to press next page. Now it's asking me for supporting documentation. So this is just an example of uploading information. So capital funding, have I applied for capital or current? I've actually said we're applying for both because you can apply for both. So just to demonstrate that I've applied for both grants. Is this amount partial or total project cost? I've said total. So again, by way of learning here, the grant is for both capital and revenue, but it's also, it can be for 100% of the costs. It needn't be, but it can be for 100% of the costs. What is the grant for? So during some of our training, we added in, as well as the 2,500, we added in 900 for operating costs, just to show up the example. And the total figure is the combination of 900 and 2,500, which is 3,400. We will acknowledge support. And it's asking you here, what promoting information, or what promoting activities you're going to do to promote the local authority, in this case, Mayo County Council, and the local Community Development Committee. So I've just said we will acknowledge the support of the department and MCC in our Facebook post. You don't need to put in a lot more. This is a small grant, and Mayo County Council acknowledges that you don't have to be going to extra costs in something like this. And then it asks you, what part of the local economic and community planning are relevant? And you can see there that if I click on that, I'll go into that plan. So if you're not familiar with it, you'll go in and click on it. And in it, you will find those 6 sections. And all you're saying here is, which of those sections am I relevant to? I picked 2 of the sections, section 5, health and well-being, and section 3, inclusion. How many beneficiaries? So I just made an estimate of the number of people who come and watch those bygone day films in the centre. So I'm going to click on next page and see again how it's going backwards on me. And this is by way of saying, I've made a mistake. And so therefore, what it doesn't like there is that I had a comma. You see here, only numerical value to be included in this field. So I'm going to take out the comma. And hopefully it likes me better. And it does. So now I put in the supporting information. So here's supporting information I already had uploaded. A bank statement, 3 quotes. But for sake of illustration, I'm going to take out these, just to help us give an example. I'm going to pretend that I'm going to upload. Do you want to upload an additional supporting document? I'm going to click yes, I do. So I'm going to click here. And so one thing to do here is you do 2 clicks. One is you click here to bring the file into this application. But to upload it onto the application, you also press this upload. Otherwise, it hasn't been uploaded. So this is just bringing it from wherever it is on the computer to be available for this application. So I'm going to click here. And it's brought me straight to my own supporting docs that I had ready for this application on my computer. So I'll pretend that I want to upload the agreement with the community centre, which is purely fictitious in my case. So I'm going to double click. And there we have agreement with community centre. Remember, we were running something in the community centre. So good practice might be to have an agreement with the community centre. That's kosher, that's fine. But that will be no good on its own. I need to go over here and upload it, because once I upload it, that will change colour into blue and become like one of these. So I'm going to click upload. There we have agreement with the community centre. There it's now valid. And you can upload as many documents you like, but please do remember, always upload. Press that green upload. So we're going to go to the next page. So now we're at the easy peasy stuff, the declarations. Just asking you to declare these points. I declare that the information is accurate, the usual kind of declarations you get, your name, your position held in the organization, chairperson, secretary, treasurer, whatever your position is, and it's asking you to write your name electronically. So this is an Apple Mac that I have here. If you have a mouse, you do one of the buttons and press it down and it will write. In my case, I put my finger on the pad and I use my other finger just to sort of write my name. Actually, I'm writing it badly enough indeed here. So L-A-L-A-N-E. So as you can see, it's not top of the class writing that I'm giving you here, but once it's legible, I did a better job on that version. It does look like Liam's Scullin a bit. And you can clear your signature you're not happy with it and write a new one. And you put in the date. And then you go into the usual consents to give your information to Mayo County Council. They can use it for this purpose. And then you can preview it. In other words, you're going to preview everything that you have written. If you're not happy with it, you can go to previous, like I did at the beginning here, and go back and edit it, because you haven't uploaded the whole application yet. So I'm going to click preview, and it comes up with my entire. It tells me there I've completed everything bar uploaded it. It said what I did. It said about the organization, the name of the schemes I applied for money for, the project details, the funding I'm looking for, the supporting documentation that I uploaded, and the declarations, my signature. And then it asks me to submit. Now, I'm not going to submit because this isn't really an application. So I would submit the document, and then that's the job done. So I'm just going to go out now at this stage and go back into the PowerPoint PowerPoint presentation. So what I've done with the PowerPoint slides that you will already have got, and if you haven't got them, please go on to Mayo PPN and they will send you a copy of the slides. The slides, in a way, just rehearse everything that I've told you. So that it shows you the application process. It mimics the whole online process. The questions about your organization. Shows you the whole thing, how it's filled in. It goes on to the website address, alternative numbers, more organizational detail, where you got funding from previously, organizations that you're linked with, what the funding is for, the category, the description of the funding, when you're going to get it spent by, the amount of money you're applying for in total, so on, how it's relevant to the local economic and community plan, uploading your documents, your signature, and finally your data processing approvals for Mayo County Council. You preview it, and you've done. And don't forget, at the end of it, to submit your application. So, key reminders at the very end. So, to register online, first of all, by following that link, go to that word apply. Also, a very useful site is the Charities Regulator website under guidance for charities. You can often get templates of things that you might want to use in running your organization. Try and have one consistent email. It also, by the way, there's the regulations, it says that you should follow the governance code. So information on the governance code is there. And obviously, if you have queries with this, just to sort of contact by email the very helpful office at the Community and Integrated Development section in Mayo County Council. There's a link there for the Charities Regulator. This will have already passed by the time you'll have seen this, but I'm flagging up the GDPR course coming up on the 2nd of March, which I'll be presenting. And there will be other courses as well on the Mayo PPN website, all very good courses. So the 2nd of March, 7 p.m., you'll be able to have the session on GDPR for small organizations. And with that, thank you very much. And I hope this has been useful to you. Thanks to Mayo PPN, and thanks to the Community and Integrated Development section in Mayo County Council, who have done all the hard work behind putting on this online. And I wish you all the very best of luck with your applications.